If you are pregnant or you've recently had a baby, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Kath Bequee. I'm a physiotherapist working in women's health and mum of three. Inside my online program, Fitness Mama, I help women feel confident and strong inside out as they navigate pregnancy, birth, and postnatal recovery. Each week, I bring you 2 episodes to support you on your motherhood journey, whether it's real and raw birth stories from fellow mums, expert interviews with trusted health professionals, or bite-sized Q&As where I answer your most common questions. It is possible to feel amazing in your body during this stage of life, and I want that for you. Come and say hi on Instagram at kathbequee.physio, and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast. Today's episode is brilliant. If you're pregnant, if you're starting to think about baby carriers, then this episode is for you. I chat with Ann, who is a physio based in Western Australia. Ann is a lactation consultant, she's a physio, and she has the website called thebabywearingphysio.com. And in this episode today with Ann, she discusses the benefits of baby wearing, how to choose a carrier. We discuss how long baby should face inwards versus outwards, and discusses safety considerations with carriers. She recommends a few carriers, and she also discusses common mistakes with baby carrying that can lead to discomfort and how to correct them. So if you're in the market for a baby carrier, this episode is brilliant. And we discuss a little bit about postpartum recovery. It's full of goodness. I trust you're going to love it. But before we jump into this episode, I do just want to say thank you so much to each and every one of you who does listen to this podcast. Thank you also if you have shared this podcast with a friend, if you've given it a rating and a review, if you've enjoyed the podcast, amazing, because I don't do ads for this podcast. Literally, the only way it can grow and reach more people is by you sharing it. So thank you. If you've got a question for me in one of our Ask Physio Kath episodes, I'm so happy to answer your questions. Just come and send me a message on Instagram at kathbequee.physio. Send me a DM, and you never know, I'm sure I'll be able to answer your question soon on an upcoming episode. Right. Let's jump straight into this episode all about baby wearing. And thank you so much for joining me on the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast, discussing all things baby wearing. I'm really excited to chat today. A fellow physio living in a totally different part of the country. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So, Anne, give us a little background. How did you've got an Instagram page which is all about baby wearing. As a physio, how did you niche, women's health physio is a pretty niche area. How did you end up niching into baby wearing?
I think as with a lot of things, especially in the women's health and sort of pregnancy, birth, baby sort of thing, it's from my own experiences. So prior to having my children, I've got 4 children, I did my graduate certificate in women's health at Curtin, finished that between my first child and my twins. As you sort of mentioned, I live in a really small, remote mining town where there was very limited support. My first was born at 34 weeks. So then we had, not the experience we expected in hospital. So I started baby wearing him actually while we were still in hospital. And it was so lovely just to do something quite normal when, we'd had that series of events that was quite abnormal. Then, finished my grad cert, then had twins when he was not quite 2. So baby wearing became simply a practicality of hoping to do anything. With my life, basically. So, one baby in a carrier, one in my arms, still one hand free to hold the toddler. Meanwhile, all through this, I was still working a little bit in the women's health space. Because I am in quite a small community, I do also do some pediatric physiotherapy. Then had my fourth child when I had 2-year-old twins and a 4-year-old. And although we thought we were pretty good parents at this stage, then we got this fourth child who just actually turned our world upside down because she was this kid who had to be held. So again, it became a necessity for life that, yeah, my daughter lived in the baby carrier. Um, Also, with my older children, had a lot of issues with breastfeeding and being, remote. And I actually think it's not actually just a remote thing. Like there's not enough support for breastfeeding everywhere in
Mm,
Australia, probably.
yeah.
Um, so meanwhile, in amidst all that, decided to become a lactation consultant. I became an IBCLC when my youngest was 5. Started seeing people in the community with lactation issues and some physio sort of stuff, and they were all saying the same thing, like we just can't get anything done. Our babies want to be held all the time. Most families here are far, far away from their families and support networks. So I was like, how about you try a baby carrier? And then I'd see them selling them on Facebook, like, 2 weeks later, because they just weren't working for them. I'm like, oh, these people need help, you
Mm,
know,
right.
finding the carrier that's going to work for them and their situation. So that's, yeah, it just kind of has grown over the past 15 years or so.
Okay, so you could see the massive benefits of a baby carrier. You were seeing women who are purchasing them and then selling them soon after because they just weren't finding or realizing the true potential. Is that
Yeah,
right?
and it's hard, right? It's hard, right, learning something new when there's so much already going on. So how to use their carrier, choosing a carrier that kind of works for them. And then, yeah, it's something that's simple and easy to use and sort of work for their lifestyle. Um, they were like, yeah,
Mm.
great idea, but they needed help with that practicality, like that next step of how to make it work for them.
Okay, I want to go into all of those things you just discussed in one podcast episode. So that's totally realistic, isn't it, Anne? But we're going to discuss choosing a carrier, basics 101, fitting a carrier, and when to seek more support from people such as yourself. But before we do that, so that we're all on the same page, can you go through really quickly the benefits of baby wearing?
Yeah,
Especially
sure.
sorry, just to interrupt, especially the benefits that we might not realize. For example, we,
Yeah.
we know it's going to help with bonding and settling the baby. Is there anything else?
Yeah, so as well as all those sort of things, like I think it really is, well, probably actually it's the bonding, like it's forming that relationship,
Mm.
because so many baby products do separate us, let's put the baby down in the bassinet, let's put them in the pram, let's be separate from our child. So we're not learning all those cues, like their communication cues. Which supports breastfeeding, which supports being able to settle our babies, and just learning, them as an individual and a person. Um, so I think it's deeper than just bonding. It is that relationship and starting all that social sort of side of their development as well. There's also physical development, which as a physio we can't ignore. um, a baby that's in a carrier and being moved around, is having to activate a lot of different muscles compared to just lying flat in a bassinet. Um, they're also seeing lots of different things. So visual development, there's lots of aspects of development that are being, you know, incidentally worked on, I guess, when we are moving with our babies and showing them different just showing them, our world and involving
Mm,
them with our world. Um, for parents too, we're getting that hit of oxytocin from that, close contact with our babies. Um, and we're getting more confidence because we are learning those cues quicker
mm,
of what our babies need and how we can help to settle them. It also, especially if, with my example of not having that support network around it, it allows us to actually do some of those simple self-care things
mm.
with our baby in tow.
Yeah.
So although there's that practicality of having free hands, it also builds on that in that we can go out and do things. The baby can sleep. We can do not all the housework, but we can do, at least feed ourselves and do some simple stuff around the house.
Mm.
Um, Yeah.
So circling back, I love what you mentioned about the visual side of things. I know when they're in a pram capsule, they're probably just staring at the roof and the sky. Whereas when they're on you,
Yep.
there'll be more to see. Initially, they're facing towards you,
Yep.
but I guess their face is turned to the side, right?
Yeah.
And so they are
Correct.
getting
Yeah.
the visual benefits. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just thinking,
Yeah.
is it best for that if they're facing towards you or facing out, um, which developmentally needs to happen at different stages?
Yeah, yeah. So we suggest facing inwards always up until 6 months, so they're getting strong enough through their trunk to be out before you're turning them around. And some people never do because from 6 months you can also, in most carriers, back wear. So then you can have them on your back and they can look over your shoulder.
Yeah,
Which is ergonomically preferable for parent and child, because with them facing away from you, it's a lot of pressure forwards and like their weight leans forward, so it changes the parent's posture. Um, but yeah, even in a child on the front facing in towards you, little kids have amazing range of movement and they can twist their trunks around quite a long way if there's something they want to see. Um, so yeah, they are getting a good view of what's going on around you. Yeah.
yeah, interesting. And I am jumping ahead of myself, but you mentioned when they're in front of you and they start to get a bit heavier,
Yep.
then a a carrier on the back might be great.
Yep.
This is exactly what I found. I had the limit, it was up to about 9, 10 months. And then I was just like, no, my back can't
It's a
handle
kid.
this.
Yep.
They're
It's too heavy.
too heavy. And that was, and it was such a sad moment when I had to say there's no more carrier. They're just too heavy. But I needed to do that for myself rather than for the bubs. Would you agree with that time frame, or do you think it should be after 6 months? What are your thoughts when they're in front of you
For
in the carrier?
back carrying or
No, front carrying.
for front carrying. It kind of it's one of those it depends answers, of course, because it does depend on your size, your trunk, how much trunk you actually have, whether you have any injuries, back pain, prolapse, that kind of thing, and whether that's irritating your injuries. It depends on the size of your
Yeah,
child. Like my oldest was only 8 kilos at 12 months, so I could back carry him for ages versus a heavier child. Yeah, as with many
mm,
things with baby wearing and physio and everything, it's
yeah,
such an it depends situation.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let's now discuss. I'd love to just get your thoughts about more the postpartum rehab angle. So, from a
Mm.
physio perspective, how can baby wearing support that early postpartum recovery?
Yeah, so it does allow, just getting out of the house, being able to walk. If you've got a really unsettled baby, who won't sit in the pram, Um, obviously, not everyone is going to feel that they are able to carry their baby for long periods straight away. Um, and we would suggest, if you are having any symptoms of baby carrier, that you do see a physio and sort of work out what's going on with your body. But otherwise, starting with just small amounts of carrying from birth means you're not suddenly carrying a baby who's, 5, 6 kilos a lot. So yeah, being able to move around more during the day if you've got an unsettled baby. There's some studies that show it's slightly less pressure on spine and that sort of thing, posture and changes in posture than carrying in arms. So if you have got a really unsettled baby, it's another choice, instead of just always having your baby in your arms, it's another option to perhaps change your posture, if you are having to spend a lot of time walking around with your baby.
Mm, hmm.
Um,
You mentioned from birth having using the carrier for short periods initially.
mm, yep.
And I am jumping between different questions, I know, but this is the perfect stage to ask. I know carriers are different, but
Yep.
would you recommend specific types of carriers from birth compared to later on in the baby when they've got the head control?
Not really. There is so many choices of carriers, and a lot of the ones we see most often, if you went into baby bunting or somewhere like that, don't always cinch down really well to that newborn size. So although they say they work from 3.5 kilos, um, unless you've got like a buckle carrier that's a buckle around the waist and then buckle up through the shoulders, unless you've got a buckle carrier that has the ability to sort of squeeze in the back panel widthways and heightways, you will find it difficult to get a safe fit. And by a safe fit, what we're really looking for is a carrier that allows you to know your baby's airways are clear all the time. Um, so really the only caution is a carrier that doesn't have that ability to really cinch down to be sitting underneath your baby's earlobes, um, especially when they're newborns and, are still um, don't have that tone in their trunk muscles. So the risk of like sort of slumping down the carrier is higher. Um, So yeah, there's lots of carriers out there that work from 3.5 kilos. There's some below, like from 2.5 kilos for those little preemies or lower
Hmm.
birth weight babies. But you do kind of have to seek them out if you wanted a buckle carrier, which is that buckle waist and buckle shoulder straps.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting. What about the sling versus, I guess, more the traditional one with the buckles and
so
the
ring
the
sling.
upright?
Yeah. Yeah. So we always want babies upright. Because if we've got them in a lying down sort of recline position, we can't monitor their airways in the same way. And there's that risk of their chin slumping down onto their chest. So we always want our babies from birth in a carrier sitting up high on our chest. So their ear is, when their ear is turned to the side, head's turned to the side, their ear is sitting kind of right up high on our sternum. And if we just dip our head down, we could kiss the top of their head. So we want their head right up there on our chest as we would normally carry, our babies around
Mm,
mostly anyway. Yeah.
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 Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to add about, I guess, that safety component?
Yeah. So many people, and I think it's getting a little bit better now, but so many people are always like, we need to keep hips safe and we know we need a carrier that's ergonomic for the baby's spine. And yes, we do. The vast majority of babies, they're in the carrier for an hour or two and then they're out and they're getting their nappy changed or being fed. They're not in there for super long
Mm,
periods of time. So we do want to worry about the baby's safety in terms of their positioning and their posture. But the main importance really is airway.
yep.
And the second safety thing that's even in more that is up in that high importance is falls as well. So we want to make sure our carrier is supporting our baby and they can't fall out of it.
Mm,
Because obviously falling from the height of your chest is not an amazing thing for your baby.
no, no. And what about the hips that you mentioned?
So we do want our babies and largely for comfort as much as hip development. Um, We want our baby sort of sitting in the carrier so that they're supported by the back panel from knee to knee. Whereas some of the older baby carriers that you see have a much narrower base. So the baby's legs, instead of being spread quite wide in kind of a squat position, their legs are dangling down. So there was a lot of talk, and it is getting less, that this would cause developmental dysplasia of the hip. It's incredibly unlikely that that would cause that. If your baby already had developmental dysplasia of the hip, it wouldn't help the resolution of
Mm,
that.
okay.
Um, yeah,
So to clarify what you said, we want them to be in a knee up sort of squat position with the carrier supporting from its knee to its hip,
babies knee, like knee to knee. So
like
they're
the whole
kind of
thigh.
sitting the whole thigh. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
When you say knee to
Um,
knee, what can you explain that? I don't quite get that.
so we want the back panel of the baby's carrier, or if they're in a ring sling or a wrap carrier, we want that the fabric of the carrier to come all the way out to their knee pit, which I didn't even know was a
Yeah.
word until I started
Knee
baby
pit.
carrying.
Why not? Knee
Um,
pit.
and that is for comfort as much as safety for the hip. Because, if you've got fabric sitting mid-thigh, if you think of that on
Mm.
yourself,
Oh,
like that's quite
totally.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And could cut off circulation. So it's for support and um if a baby's well supported in that position, actually their pelvis is quite secure and we don't have to worry too much about, they can control their head. So we don't need
Mm,
their baby's head, any kind of hood or anything above the baby's head. We just want the carrier to be knee to knee and then up to sort of the back of their neck or under their earlobes. And
yeah,
that gives enough support for them to be secure and then being able to look around and for us to know that their airways are clear.
yeah. Am I allowed to ask, do you have any favorite brands? Non-sponsored.
Well, I obviously do if you go and look at my website.
Okay.
Look, there's so many brands out there that are actually really, really good. I do love the Necco carriers because they truly work from 3.5 kilos up to 20 kilos. So you can get that longevity from the one carrier. And they have a really good range of full buckle carriers and half buckle carriers, which the full buckle is what we often think of, like it's all buckled up. And people get a bit scared about having to tie carriers and that sort of thing. But often when I give someone a half buckle and say, just try this, which is the waistband still buckles up. So it's got that sort of solid padded waistband,
Hmm.
back panel, and then the shoulder straps you tie. Um, so it's lovely and soft for the wearer and distributes the weight really well. And you're getting a custom fit with it every single time. So that's a carrier that people have often never heard of, a style of carrier people often never heard of. But once they try it, they're like, wow, where has this been all my life kind of thing. Yeah, so that's another favorite, not a brand, but a style of carrier.
Yeah, right. Um, and they look like, and I'm just looking at your website now. They look like there's some that look like the traditional carrier, but
Yeah.
then there's some which actually look like the fabric cloth, like sling carriers. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're quite
Yeah.
nice. There's,
So they're all made from woven fabrics, so cotton, linen. They're just introducing bamboo. So that's what I look for in a carrier. Obviously, where I live, it's 40 degrees every day in summer.
yeah,
So I look for those natural fabrics versus some of the other carriers that you get more commercially available that are synthetic fabrics. And even if they say, they're breeze or breathable and that sort of thing, they're still quite sweaty because they're, yeah, synthetic fabrics.
yeah, right. Yeah, fair enough. And there's nothing worse than taking your baby off. I still remember that. Taking your baby out of the carrier and you've both got
Yeah.
sweat
Look, it's
patches on
still a
each other.
hot activity.
It's inevitable, I guess, not like you're living in Australia, but oh dear. Okay, where were we at? That went on a bit of a tangent from my initial question discussing the postnatal recovery side. I
Yes.
do have one more question about that postnatal recovery side of things. And this is why, if you come onto my podcast as a guest, I was just saying this to Anne, I don't love doing pre-structured questions because A, it's so much more robotic, but B, it takes away all those juicy questions that come up naturally in conversation, which is what that whole tangent was that we just went on about the considerations and the safety and the different types. But going back to my original question about postnatal recovery, my ears pricked up when you said let's start wearing a baby for short periods from birth in the carrier. So immediately I went into my mind, and I think I'm guilty of not guiding my patients, my mums through the baby wearing aspect. Because what I recommend as a women's health physio is to gradually increase the amount of time we're walking, every week, walk a little bit more on a
Yep.
daily basis until 6 weeks. So, week one, postpartum, 5 minute bursts of walking. So, not 5 minutes all day, but 5 minute
Yep.
bursts. Let's sit down, have a little
Yep.
rest, lie down, whatever. Second week, 10 minutes. Third week, 15 minutes. So again, not 15 minutes for the whole day, 15-minute bursts of walking. So now I'm thinking, okay, let's pop baby into the equation. Because it would be good to do a combination. We don't want to just only wear the baby early postpartum. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe one or two baby wears with a walk in the early few weeks So instead of just a
Yeah.
5 minute walk, a couple of those in the week would be with the baby and gradually
Yep.
increasing it that way. Is that what you'd recommend?
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, I think that'd be perfect because we want to monitor, is there any symptoms? Like, is that actually too
Mm.
much? Or yeah, so we don't want to be doing it too frequently and having that time for recovery and all that sort of thing. So yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would think that would be a good
Uh,
solution. And lots of people really worry, this is another tangent. Um, what if I've had a Caesar? Won't the baby carrier annoy that? But actually, with your newborn, if you think about we want their head way up here on your sternum, their
mm,
bottom's only just under your breasts. So we actually put the waistband of the carrier, if it has one, right up
mm,
high on the rib cage. So
yep.
it's nowhere near your Caesar scar.
Yep.
So that shouldn't be a limitation. Like pain obviously would be, but
Hmm.
the actual carrier interfering with the scar is not a consideration at all.
Yeah, that's good to know. And what I also, again, another tangent, but cesareans often told not to lift anything heavier than bubs for the first six
Yep,
weeks. So baby carrier, perfect for that. But what I
absolutely.
do love about that recommendation, and also I personally love it when doctors say no driving for 6 weeks, not because of the driving aspect, but because when we start driving, we then are more likely to go places by
Yep,
ourselves. We're having to haul prams in and out of the
yep,
car, capsules, bags, we're more likely to be out and about for longer periods of time. So I love that recommendation, or just a guideline, I guess, for all
yep,
women after giving birth. Let's try to limit how much, like, even if you're allowed
yep,
to drive, let's try to limit how much you're having to drive, just as a factor of let's let our body recover in those 6 weeks. And, walking somewhere for 5 minutes versus hauling everything into the
yep,
car and using the baby carrier to walk somewhere for 5 minutes is a
yep,
much nicer option for
yep.
recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and it's yeah, it does. It just it makes you really evaluate what do I need in my bag, and actually you need a nappy because you don't have the pram to like shovel your things in. Yeah, yeah,
Actually, that's a good point. The prams are good for carrying lots of things.
they are.
Okay, now let's discuss common mistakes that you might see that can lead to discomfort and how to correct
Well,
them.
carrying, yeah. Um, so I think lots of parents just rush into, and whenever I'm working in a baby exo or something like that, the parents pick up the carry and they just try and like shove their arms in instead of taking a second to actually looking at how does my carrier work. Having a look at the booklet that comes with it. There's so many videos. So actually spending a bit of time learning how your carrier works, so that hopefully you minimize the mistakes when you do first start to use it. So first of all, we want to fit the waistband, and as I've already mentioned, if your carrier has a waistband, we want to whatever carrier we use and create that seat for the baby to sit in first. So we want the carrier position correctly on our bodies, so the baby's going to end up in that correct position. If your baby's sitting low on your body, not only on your front, not only is that a problem for their airways because you can't monitor them, but often it does change your posture quite a lot more. So it will become uncomfortable on your back or on your shoulders. Um, so waistband up nice and high. Then we want to make sure that baby's sitting in the carrier. And by that I mean they're using the back panel of the carrier or the fabric of the sling to actually form kind of like a hammock situation. So they're sort of sunk down into the carrier and the carrier's taking the weight rather than your shoulders really like the weight dragging over your shoulders. Um, so often just getting the carrier in the right position, it ends up being more comfortable for both of you. And then, like with lots of things, particularly breastfeeding, it's just those minor little adjustments of like, oh, this is sort of digging in here. Lots of the carriers I sell have multiple adjustment points on the strap. So if a buckle's digging in, on your breast tissue, can we move that and change the tension on the strap in a different way? Um, so yeah, baby high and tight to make sure that their weight is being carried by the carrier and not by our shoulders or our back. Yeah, it's the main
And
sort of point.
how tight should the straps be?
So not tight, obviously, because we want circulation. Um, it's kind of it is in the adjustment, and often I find people again just like will pull this like in a quick, just really quickly try and just pull on the straps, whereas we want to kind of feed the fabric through and place the strap where we want it to go.
Mm.
Um, so we still want to be able to obviously fit our fingers underneath, so not tight that, we can't be doing that. Yeah.
Is it similar to fitting a bra strap, which people
Yeah.
also probably fit poorly in general?
Fully, yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
often actually liken choosing a baby carrier to choosing bra or jeans or something like that, that they fit. Sometimes something will fit on one body just perfectly. And then your best friend tries it and she's like, oh my God, that's the most uncomfortable bra I've ever worn. There is that sort of, if you can, before you buy a carrier, try some different ones, which is really tricky if you don't have access to, a wide range of different carriers. Um, because yeah, the different carriers suit different bodies and different situations.
And for those listening who are rural or regional and might not have access to a lot of options,
Yeah.
have you got like a good returns policy, exchange policy?
If you get it and it doesn't work, like I try and work with people before they buy a carrier to make sure they're getting something that really works for them. Yeah, it is tricky because the only place I know that really has a robust higher sort of community group, I guess, is Perth. There is another private business who does do a hire program in Australia, Cloth and Carry. It is really tricky, and this is where I often get friends, beg, borrow, and steal, and see what else you can find from, people around you to have a
Actually,
bit of a
that's
try at least.
that's a great tip, trying on your friends. If you've got friends who have babies, trying on their
Yeah.
carriers if you don't have access to shops.
Yep. Yep. It's
Yeah.
my favorite workshop I run with parents. I'm like, bring in all your carriers, then I get to see everyone's carrier and, can't buy them all. So, but also other parents can try on different carriers and they're like, oh, thank God I've tried that on because I would have bought that carrier and it was $300 and I don't think I would have liked it. Um,
Uh,
versus this other
yeah.
carrier that actually, that's probably going to work for me. Yeah, it is really tricky.
Do you offer online fittings?
Yeah. Yeah. Just get in touch with me. My life's a little bit busy at the moment, but yes, absolutely.
Just another thing to add to your plate. Okay, I'm looking at my list of questions. We're zooming through them. I think there's one question about the safety I haven't asked, and there's one question about choosing a carrier I haven't yet asked. So, the safety question, you've discussed the baby's airway, you've discussed the hips positioning, temperature, that side of things. Are there any red flags or I guess any signs that something isn't right when you're using a carrier?
The baby will tell you generally, and this is what I hear from people all the time. They're like, my baby just didn't like the carrier. They probably just weren't comfortable in the carrier um, because probably it wasn't quite fitted right. Um, Really, apart from that, there's some very obvious red flags, and I bought some carriers from it was Sheen,
Oh
and the
no.
quality of those carriers was terrible. So as long as
Mm,
you're buying from a reputable, source, because your baby's going to suck on their carrier and that as well. So we want to make sure the
yeah,
fabrics, are
non-toxic.
not exactly full of toxins. Yeah. So yeah, usually a baby will tell you if they're uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Um, and you'll be uncomfortable too, generally.
yeah.
If something's really not going right. Yeah.
Okay. I hadn't even thought, I'm sure I thought about that non-toxic side when I was using carriers because that's just brought back memories of like the spit marks,
Oh, the
the
suck.
wetness
Yeah.
from the
Yeah.
sucking when they were outward facing. It's just
Yeah.
suck, 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 and it would
Yeah.
be, oh my God.
Yeah, you can
Then it
get
wouldn't come
teething
off.
pads and that sort of thing. Use them because
Oh,
you don't want to be washing your carrier all the time either because
yeah,
it does lessen the life of it every time you're sort of washing and that wear and tear on buckles and straps and things. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, good tip. I didn't even know there were teething carriers. I don't think they were a thing back in my day.
yeah, yeah. No, there's so many things now.
Showing my age here. Um, Okay, and then back to the choosing of the carrier.
Mm.
We've discussed, I guess, your favorite, and we discussed newborns. But in terms of older baby
Mhm.
carriers and back carriers, to be honest, the only back carriers I see, and I've really come across a lot, are when people are bushwalking or, you know, going out and about for ages.
Frame.
And yeah,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
big, bulky ones that are
Yep.
for long distances. Are
Yep.
there any of your favorites that can be used for like day-to-day
Yeah.
carrying?
So all the full buckles that let's not say all, most of the full buckles that I sell can be used for back carrying from that sort of 6 month mark to 18 months or so. Depends how big your babies, how quickly your babies grow. Half buckles, same. And you can also get toddler size and even preschool size carriers in lots of brands. So if you have a child who's got mobility issues, like a carrier can just open up so much of the world to you, because you can back carry them for, extended periods of time, actually quite comfortably, in places where strollers or wheelchairs or whatever won't go. Um, the more traditional sort of carriers, so your woven wraps, um, have a bit more of a learning curve compared to a buckle carrier where you kind of just have a couple of points that you buckle up and then adjust the straps. Woven wrap carriers have almost infinite possibilities for carrying. Um, yeah, it's a whole world of color, pattern, fabric
Mm,
choices, and different fabrics. Are better for carrying toddlers with that heavier weight, but they're a bit harder to tie. So there is a whole world out there.
yeah.
Um, Using woven wraps. Another really good choice for toddler carrying on the back, particularly if you're pregnant, the mother is pregnant again, is an ombahimu, which is a Japanese style carrier that just is like a backpack basically with a chest strap at the front. But no waistband. So there are so many choices for that older age range.
Mm.
Um, yeah, once they sort
It's,
of want that, to be able to see more on your back.
yeah.
Um, and also
Is
they're
it
heavier. So
is it harder to put them on your back than front? Do you need a second person to help?
no, once you learn know how to do it, like it is obviously a learning curve, and that's another reason why in Western societies where we're not as well versed in carrying our babies in a carrier, that we suggest 6 months so that they can help somewhat have that sort of control. In other cultures, they're carrying on the back literally from birth. Um,
Mm.
but we just don't have the skills to be safely doing that, in most Western societies. Um, so yeah, especially once your baby knows, if you've been carrying on the front for a while, you know all the features of your carrier and how they work, and your baby knows how to get in the carrier. It's not that difficult to be able to rotate them around. Like you kind of can put them on the front and rotate them under your arm and around,
Yeah.
to hit in the
You're
back.
right.
It's not like you throw them. Like you can. Once you get really proficient, yeah, it's not
You're
a throw them over your shoulder
yeah.
situation necessarily. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. So, to finish off with, for mums who, let's say they're pregnant and they've got their to-do list and buying a baby carrier is on it and they're feeling a bit overwhelmed because there's so many different types and they want to make sure they get the right sort. What do you suggest for
Yep.
anyone who, yeah, is a bit unsure about next steps?
Yep. I was just having a look at some different things. For lots of people, that might mean going into one of the big baby stores, which is a good thing to do, to actually put your hands on some carriers and have a try. But remembering that the people in there often aren't trained in baby wearing. There is a growing number of baby wearing consultants around the whole country that do have like a stash of baby carriers that you can make an appointment with to go and see, or they can come and see you, try out some different carriers, actually problem solve, how often you're likely to use it, which obviously might change once you get your baby, but how you think you're going to use your carrier and what carrier might be best suited for you. And your situation of, past injuries, are you sharing it with your partner, all those sort of things. So there's the Australian Baby Wearing Association is a good website to go to have a look at who's available, perhaps near you. Most of the big baby expos have a baby wearing stall at them, which is run in a lot of them by the Australian Baby Wearing Association. So you can try carriers with people who are expert in baby wearing there. And there are a few stores apart from mine that are run by baby wearing consultants in Australia, and all of us are more than happy to like have a bit of a chat with you, show you, photos or video or whatever of carriers to try and work out what's going to work best for you before you make that purchase.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Anne. How can people find, do you want to be found?
Yes,
You said
sure.
before you're very busy. How can women come and find you if they'd like to,
Yeah, so
find
on
out about more?
Instagram, I'm just Babywearing Physio, and my website is the Babywearing Physio. I'm more than happy for people to email me or DM me or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I wish I'd had your website and this podcast episode 13 years ago.
Same.
Better late than never.
We'll get there.
Thank you so much, Anne. We'll catch you soon.
Thanks, Kath.
Thanks for listening to the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast brought to you by Fitness Mama, your app for home-based, physio-led pregnancy and postnatal workouts. If you found this episode helpful, please tap follow, leave a quick review and share it to your stories. Tag at kathbequee.physio. I'd love to connect and cheer you on. And don't forget to check out the free trial at fitnessmama.com/free to start feeling confident, strong and supported today. Until next time, remember, a strong body, a confident birth and empowered recovery is something you deserve. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for individual medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. Please consult your healthcare provider for your personalised guidance.